Millionaires don't go broke. At least, that's what I used to believe. Back then, I thought once you crossed the magical 7-figure mark, you were set for life. But the truth is uglier. You can lose it just as quickly as you earn it, and when it's gone, it's not just the money that disappears. Your identity, your confidence, your sense of who you are, they vanish too. This is my story, in all its messy, gut-wrenching detail. How I went from a broke kid with a coffee can under his bed to a 22-year-old millionaire, and then watched it all slip away. You'll feel the adrenaline, the arrogance, the panic, the heartbreak, and maybe, if you've ever fallen hard yourself, you'll feel the stubborn spark that kept me from staying down. I grew up in a small town where the concept of wealth felt like a fairy tale. Our apartment was cramped enough that you could smell dinner from the front door no matter where you stood. Winters were brutal. The heater groaned like it was on its last breath, and I'd shove socks under my bedroom door just to keep a little warmth from escaping. My mom worked double shifts at a diner, scrubbing dishes until her hands were red and raw. She'd come home exhausted, smelling faintly of coffee and fryer oil, but always tried to put on a smile. My dad fixed cars, his hands permanently stained black from grease, his back bent from years under the hood. His sigh when he sat down in the evening said more than words ever could. At 15, I'd sit in the library flipping through glossy magazines, staring at watches that cost more than our yearly rent and vacations that looked like scenes from another planet. My biggest fantasy wasn't even about mansions or yachts. It was being able to walk into a fast food restaurant and order whatever I wanted without counting the change in my pocket first. By 17, I decided that dreaming wasn't enough. I took a job bussing tables at a different diner from my mom's, making $6 an hour plus tips. My feet would throb after every shift, my shirt permanently smelled of fries, and I'd fall asleep still wearing my shoes. But every single crumpled bill and coin I earned went into a dented coffee can under my bed. That can wasn't just money, it was my escape hatch. The turning point came late one night when I stumbled onto a YouTube video titled, How I Made $10,000 This Month Without Touching a Product. I clicked, and my world shifted. The guy was talking about something called dropshipping, selling products online without ever holding inventory. No warehouse, no packing boxes in your living room, just a laptop, suppliers, and strategy. It sounded like magic. I was hooked instantly. Within days, I had spent $150, half my savings, on an online course. When my mom saw the charge, she shook her head in disbelief. "You're spending how much to sell things you don't even own?" she asked. "This is my shot," I told her. "I can't afford not to try." From that moment, I lived in a haze of obsession. I'd stay up until 4 in the morning learning how to set up a Shopify store, researching suppliers on AliExpress, and experimenting with Facebook ad targeting. My eyes burned, my neck ached, and my hands cramped from typing, but I felt alive. My first store sold pet gear, collars, leashes, and tiny sweaters for dogs. Pets were a safe bet, I figured, because people loved spoiling them. I launched my first $40 ad campaign with my heart in my throat. For days, nothing happened. Then one night, ping, my phone buzzed. My first sale. A $10 leash that cost me $7 to ship. I had made $3 in profit. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was proof the system worked. That tiny sale lit a fire in me. By the third month, after obsessively tweaking my ads and spying on my competitors to mimic what worked, I was making $500 a month in profit. At 19, that was more than I'd ever earned without breaking my back. But I wasn't content. I wanted more. By the time I turned 20, I was ready to scale. I quit my diner job, took my $7,000 in savings, and launched a fitness gear store. Resistance bands, yoga mats, water bottles, anything the Instagram fitness community was obsessed with. I spotted a trend in colorful resistance bands and pounced. I bought them for $4 each and sold them for $20. My ads targeted women building home gyms, and the results were explosive. I spent $700 a day on ads and made $2,000 back. My first month? $12,000 in profit. I remember staring at my Shopify dashboard, hands trembling, thinking, I've cracked the code. From there, it became a blur of growth. I added more products: gym bags, protein shakers, sweatproof headphones. I hired a virtual assistant to handle customer emails, a designer to make my store look professional, and even a part-time marketer. By 21, I was pulling in $70,000 a month. By 22, I had officially made my first million. No degree. No investors. No rich parents. Just me, a laptop, and a relentless hunger to escape the life I'd been born into. With money came a new lifestyle. I moved into a high-rise condo with a skyline view, bought a used BMW that felt like the crown jewel of my success, and wore $300 sneakers just because I could. One of the best moments of my life was taking my mom to a restaurant where the bill came to $250 and paying for it without flinching. She cried at the table. I flew friends to Vegas, paid for bottle service, and lived like every night was a movie. But I didn't just spend on myself. I paid off my mom's $10,000 debt, bought her a new car, and started a college fund for my little brother. Those moments meant more than the parties, but the truth was, the parties were constant, and addictive. That's when the arrogance began to seep in, not overnight, but gradually, like water slipping through the cracks of a dam you don't even notice is weakening. I had convinced myself I was different, that I had some unshakable gift for turning anything I touched into gold. Failure was for other people. I was untouchable. I doubled down on that belief, pouring myself into new ventures without a fraction of the research or caution I'd once had. One week it was phone cases with flashy designs I barely glanced at before approving. The next, it was sleek home decor I figured would just sell, because I liked the look of it. I started spending $30,000 a month on ads without blinking, telling myself it was just the cost of scaling an empire. And in the short term, it seemed to work. Some stores did hit big, pulling in $120,000 to $180,000 in revenue like clockwork. The dopamine rush of watching those numbers climb was addictive. It didn't matter that my margins weren't as clean, that I was juggling more moving parts than I could keep track of. All I saw was growth. The money made me restless. I didn't just want online success anymore, I wanted a physical presence, something I could point to and say, that's mine. I leased a sleek office space with floor-to-ceiling windows and polished concrete floors, the kind of place that made me feel like a CEO when I walked in. I hired more staff, not just for necessity, but for the ego boost of having a team. I held Monday meetings where I'd speak about our vision like I was running a Fortune 500 company, even though some of my new hires barely had enough work to fill their days. I told everyone, including myself, that I was building an empire. But deep down, in the quiet moments, when the office was empty and the city lights reflected off those shiny windows, I felt a flicker of unease. It was small, easy to ignore, but it was there. In reality, cracks were already forming. I just didn't want to see them. By early 2020, the fitness market was oversaturated. Everyone was selling resistance bands, and ad costs doubled while sales plateaued. I told myself it was temporary. Then COVID hit, and my suppliers in China stalled. Orders that used to take a week now took a month or more. Customers flooded my inbox with refund demands, and my assistant couldn't keep up. I refused to hire more help, convinced I could push through like always. At the same time, I started chasing quick wins. Friends pitched me on can't miss investments, crypto, NFTs, a bizarre startup that was basically Uber for dog walkers. I put $120,000 into Bitcoin right before it tanked, losing $80,000 almost overnight. The startup collapsed, taking another $60,000 with it. I told myself I'd make it back. I didn't. By 2021, it was spiraling out of control. I borrowed $300,000 to start a clothing line, hoodies and t-shirts I thought would dominate Instagram. I skipped proper market research, assuming my marketing skills would carry it. They didn't. The designs were bland, the branding forgettable, and the sales almost non-existent. I was stuck with $100,000 worth of inventory nobody wanted. Then Facebook's ad algorithm shifted, and my once profitable campaigns tanked. I spent $7,000 on ads and made back $2,000. I tried TikTok, but my content flopped. Monthly revenue fell from $70,000 to $6,000, then to $1,000. The knockout punch came when my largest supplier went bankrupt. I had prepaid $200,000 for inventory that never arrived. There was no money left for legal action. By 2022, I was done. I sold the BMW, gave up the condo, and crashed on a friend's couch. My coffee can, once overflowing with possibility, was empty. I was 25, broke, and hollow. Losing the money hurt, but the deeper wound was in my sense of self. I had been the guy, the one with the car, the condo, the flashy lifestyle. Now I was nothing. I avoided friends, afraid of their pity. My mom hugged me and told me, "You're still my son," but I saw the worry in her eyes. I had promised her a better life and failed. Nights on that couch were torture. I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying every reckless decision. Why didn't I save more? Why did I gamble on unproven ideas? Why did I think I was invincible? I'd scroll through social media, watching others succeed, and feel the sting of jealousy and shame. The shift came from a random post I saw on X. A man wrote about going bankrupt twice before finally building a stable business. He said, "Failure's just a lesson you didn't ask for." Those words hit me hard. I realized the fire in me hadn't died, it was buried under guilt and fear. I decided I wasn't done. I took a cashier job at a grocery store, making $10 an hour. It was humbling, but it gave me time to think. I devoured books like The Lean Startup and Atomic Habits, learning to focus on small, consistent steps. I started a new store selling eco-friendly kitchenware, bamboo cutting boards, reusable straws, keeping expenses lean and testing every product before scaling. I tracked every cent like my life depended on it. By 2024, I was earning $3,500 a month. It wasn't millions, but it was enough for a tiny apartment and a fridge that wasn't empty. I saved half of every dollar and studied market trends like it was a religion. I wasn't that cocky kid anymore. If I could speak to my 22-year-old self, I'd tell him to slow down. Money doesn't make you a god. Diversify your income. Save like it's oxygen. Test before you dive in. And never let pride blind you. Most importantly, I'd tell him that failure is not the end, it's the teacher you never wanted but desperately needed. I'm not rich today, but I'm not broken either. My store now pulls in $5,000 a month, and I'm experimenting with affiliate marketing and maybe even starting a YouTube channel to share my story. The hunger is back, wiser, steadier, and less reckless. If you've ever dreamed big and fallen hard, I hope my story shows you this: you can lose everything and still rise again. The world doesn't care about your past failures. It only cares about your next move.